In the distant future, humanity has expanded far beyond Earth, settling into a peaceful existence among the stars. For generations, humans have avoided war, developing their societies and technologies in harmony with their new worlds. They believed that their days of facing existential threats were long behind them, until the Turon arrived. The Turon were a race unlike any humanity had ever encountered. Towering in fierce, they had conquered countless civilizations with brutal efficiency. Their empire stretched across the galaxy, a testament to their ruthlessness. The Turon viewed humans as weak, naive, and unworthy of the vast resources they controlled. From their perspective, the fact that humanity had spread so far was an insult. It was time for the humans to be put in their place. The Emperor of the Turon, a figure who ruled with an iron fist, sent a message directly to Earth's leaders. The terms were simple: surrender your worlds, submit to our rule, and your species will be allowed to exist under the protection of the Turon Empire. Refuse, and face total annihilation. The Emperor believed there was no choice. In his mind, no one had ever defied the Turon and survived. Earth's leaders were faced with a decision that would shape the future of humanity. They gathered in secret, away from the eyes of the public. The tension in the room was palpable as they reviewed the details of the ultimatum. The Turon had a military might that humanity couldn't match head-on, but surrender was not an option. Humanity had come too far to kneel to any tyrant, alien or otherwise. Some argued for negotiation, for finding a way to appease the Turon without losing everything. But others, those who had seen war, knew the truth. The Turon didn't want to negotiate, they wanted control. If humanity surrendered, they would be slaves, and their worlds would be drained of resources until nothing remained. It was clear, the only option was to fight. However, humanity could not win a conventional war. The Turon's fleets were massive, their technology seemingly insurmountable. But humans had something the Turon didn't expect: ingenuity. Instead of facing the alien empire in a direct confrontation, Earth's most brilliant military minds devised a different kind of plan. They wouldn't defend Earth, they would strike at the very heart of the Turon Empire. The Turon had grown arrogant over the centuries of their dominance. No one had ever dared attack their homeworld, much less successfully. This arrogance was their greatest weakness, and humanity would exploit it. The leaders approved a covert operation, a mission that would either save their species or doom it. A strike force would be assembled, made up of the best soldiers humanity had to offer. These were not soldiers trained for open warfare. They were specialists in stealth, sabotage, and guerrilla tactics. Their mission was clear: infiltrate the Turon homeworld, sabotage key infrastructures, and destabilize their entire empire from within. It was a mission with no guarantee of return, but every member of the team volunteered without hesitation. They knew what was at stake. The plan was bold, unprecedented, and dangerous. But humanity had no choice. The Turon had made their ultimatum clear, and humanity's answer was equally clear: they would not surrender. The strike force was quickly assembled, each member handpicked for their expertise. These weren't ordinary soldiers. They were specialists, trained for missions where failure wasn't an option. Their skills spanned from infiltration and sabotage to cyber warfare and explosives. They had one goal: to make the Turon Emperor regret ever challenging humanity. The mission was clear, but the risks were immense. The Turon homeworld, Turon, was heavily fortified. The Emperor had surrounded himself with layers of defenses, from fleets of warships to impenetrable planetary shields. Yet, even with all that, the Turon had grown complacent. They believed no force could ever touch them at home, and that arrogance was exactly what the human strike force intended to exploit. The journey to Turon was conducted in complete secrecy. The strike team used stealth ships equipped with the latest human cloaking technology, making them nearly invisible to Turon scanners. It took weeks to reach the Turon homeworld, but when they arrived, the plan went into motion without hesitation. They had limited time, and every second mattered. The first step was disabling Turon's outer defenses. The strike team hacked into the Turon's communication network, cutting off critical lines between their planetary defenses and the Emperor's command center. By the time the Turon realized something was wrong, it was already too late. Small, surgical strikes crippled key military installations, power grids, and transport systems across the planet. The humans moved with precision, using sabotage to cause maximum chaos with minimal exposure. While the Turon scrambled to understand the source of the attacks, the human team pressed deeper into the capital. Their mission was not just to disrupt but to bring the entire empire to its knees. The strike force placed explosives in critical infrastructure, military factories, communication hubs, and government buildings, ensuring that when the time came, the capital would fall in one catastrophic moment. But the real blow to the Turon would come from what the humans did next. The team used the Emperor's own communication networks to broadcast the destruction of his cities directly to him. In his palace, surrounded by opulence and security, the Emperor watched in shock and disbelief as his empire burned before his eyes. This was no random attack. It was personal. The humans had come to show the Emperor that his war against Earth was a fatal mistake. Every major city on Turon was thrown into disarray. Power outages spread across the planet, and the once organized military response crumbled into confusion. The Turon soldiers, used to overwhelming their enemies with brute force, had no experience with this kind of warfare. They were trained to fight in open battles, not defend against covert strikes that targeted their very foundation. As the chaos spread, the human strike team remained focused on their ultimate objective, reaching the Emperor's palace. It wasn't enough to destroy his cities. They needed him to understand that humanity had outsmarted him. His defeat would not come from sheer force, but from strategy and precision, elements he had failed to account for. By the time the human team infiltrated the palace, the Turon were on the brink of collapse. Their greatest cities lay in ruins, their military in disarray, and their emperor isolated. The final act of the mission was to confront the emperor himself, to make him watch as his empire crumbled, powerless to stop it. The team didn't kill him. That would have been too easy. Instead, they left him alive to witness the destruction of everything he had built. The emperor sat in stunned silence, watching the destruction of his once mighty empire unfold before him. For the first time in his life, he felt powerless. The carefully crafted facade of invincibility that the Turon had maintained for centuries was shattered. His cities, the symbols of his reign, were burning. Chaos spread across the homeworld as the realization dawned on his people. The Turon were not untouchable, and the humans had proven it. The human strike team had succeeded in their mission far beyond anyone's expectations. The strategic targeting of key infrastructure had not only crippled the Turon military but also plunged their civilian population into fear and confusion. With communication networks down, power grids offline, and their capital in flames, the entire planet was on the verge of collapse. What the Turon had once seen as their greatest strength, their belief in their own superiority, had become their downfall. The Emperor, once a figure of absolute authority, now faced the brutal consequences of his arrogance. His advisors, generals, and soldiers, those who had once bowed in unquestioning loyalty, were now either dead or scattered in the chaos. The imperial palace, once a fortress of control, had become a prison of his own making. His every move, every command, was meaningless in the face of the destruction raining down upon his empire. But the psychological toll was perhaps the most devastating. For years, the emperor had believed that his power was unassailable, that the Turon were destined to rule the galaxy uncontested. The humans, in his eyes, had been nothing more than an insignificant species, primitive, weak, and undeserving of their place among the stars. Now, he was forced to confront the reality he had refused to see. The humans were not weak. They had used his own arrogance against him, and the emperor had underestimated them at every turn. As the flames consumed his cities, the emperor could no longer deny the truth. The humans had outsmarted him, and he had lost everything. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, news of the Turon Empire's collapse spread like wildfire. The races that had once feared the Turon now watched with amazement as their seemingly invincible overlords crumbled under the weight of their hubris. The Emperor's downfall was not just a victory for humanity. It was a signal to the rest of the galaxy that the age of Turon dominance was over. In the human ranks, there was no celebration, no glory in what had been achieved. This was not a war won through traditional means, but a calculated dismantling of an enemy's foundation. The strike force had done what was necessary to protect Earth, but there was a cold, unsettling recognition that this victory had come at a cost. They had burned cities, destroyed lives, and broken a civilization. There was no honor in the ashes they had left behind, only survival. Yet, despite the gravity of what they had done, humanity had sent a message that could not be ignored. They had shown that they were capable of far more than the galaxy had ever given them credit for. Earth, once seen as a backwater planet on the fringes of galactic politics, was now a force to be reckoned with. The Emperor, now stripped of his empire and his power, was left to live with the consequences of his actions. The humans had spared his life, not out of mercy, but to ensure that he witnessed the full extent of his failure. He was to be a living reminder to the galaxy of what happens when arrogance blinds even the mightiest of rulers. In the weeks that followed, the Turon Empire fragmented. Without the central command structure that had kept them in power for so long, factions within the empire turned on each other. Civil war erupted, with various generals and warlords vying for control in the vacuum of power left by the emperor's downfall. The once unified Turon were now fighting among themselves, tearing their own empire apart from within. For the humans, the mission was over, but the consequences of their actions would ripple across the galaxy for years to come. They had won the war, but they knew that this victory would not guarantee peace. There would always be another threat, another enemy waiting to challenge them. But now, they had proven that they were not to be underestimated. The Emperor's fate was sealed. He would live out his days as a broken, defeated figure, watching the remnants of his empire collapse into dust. And as the last of his cities burned, he was left with the harsh, inescapable truth: the humans had won, and there was nothing he could do to change that. With the Emperor left to his downfall, humanity's final act wasn't one of mercy but of a cold, calculated reckoning. He was to remain a captive, forced to witness the total collapse of his empire from the very heart of the world he had once ruled. The human strike force, having completed their mission, withdrew as planned, leaving behind nothing but devastation. They had done what they came to do, and now the Turon had no means of rebuilding. Back on Earth, the victory wasn't met with fanfare. The human leaders understood that what had been accomplished was a necessity, not a moment of triumph. It had been about survival, not glory. The humans had chosen the only path available to them, a path that ensured their existence but left no illusions about the toll it had taken. There was a grim understanding that humanity had become what they once despised: destroyers of worlds. Still, the message had been sent, not just to the Turon, but to the entire galaxy. Humanity had shown they were not to be underestimated, that they could and would protect themselves with ferocity if provoked. The tactical brilliance of the operation had demonstrated that brute force was not the only way to win a war. In fact, the humans had proven that with enough ingenuity, a far weaker force could bring even the mightiest empire to its knees. Other civilizations, many of whom had quietly suffered under the Turon's reign, began to rise up. Inspired by humanity's bold actions, they saw the cracks in the empire and realized this was their chance for freedom. Rebellions broke out on several Turon-controlled worlds. Civilizations that had once been loyal subjects now seized the opportunity to shake off their oppressors. The Turon, now without their emperor's guidance and leadership, were powerless to stop the wave of uprisings. The galaxy was changing, and humanity's role in it was evolving. No longer were they seen as a species on the outskirts, insignificant in the grander scheme of things. Their defiance had rewritten the political landscape. However, humanity was fully aware of what this new position meant. They had earned respect, but they had also earned the fear and attention of other powerful factions across the stars. Among those factions were those who viewed humanity with caution, perhaps even resentment. The destruction of the Turon homeworld had not gone unnoticed. While many saw humanity's actions as a bold stand for survival, others saw them as a rising threat. A species capable of such strategic ruthlessness could not be ignored. There would be those who sought alliances with humanity, but there would also be those who saw them as a force to be reckoned with, a potential danger to be eliminated before they grew too powerful. For now, however, the immediate threat was gone. The Turon Empire, once feared across the galaxy, was in shambles. The civil wars raging on their remaining worlds would likely continue for decades, with various factions fighting for scraps of what was left. The Emperor's reign was over, and with it, the age of Turon dominance had come to an end. It was an ending no one, not even the humans, had anticipated, but it was one they had ensured through precise, relentless action. The humans had done more than survive, they had altered the course of galactic history. The galaxy would never be the same after the fall of the Turon, and humanity had secured their place in it. However, the cost of that victory weighed heavily on those who had made it possible. They had waged war not to conquer, but to ensure their freedom, and yet the destruction they had wrought left a lasting impact. They had become something more than just survivors. They had become warriors capable of unimaginable feats, and that realization would shape their future decisions. The Emperor, now a shadow of his former self, lived in silence. His once magnificent palace was a cold, desolate prison. He was not physically tortured, but the psychological toll of watching his empire crumble was punishment enough. He was a broken man, stripped of his power and dignity. The galaxy moved on without him, and he was left to watch from the ruins of his own making. Humanity's victory, though necessary, was not celebrated in the conventional sense. There were no grand parades or monuments to mark the moment. The human race understood that their survival had come at a cost, both to themselves and to the countless lives they had destroyed. The galaxy had been forever changed, and now, humanity had to navigate their new reality with caution. But one thing was clear: humanity would not be conquered. They had sent a message that resonated far beyond the ashes of the Turon cities. A message that any empire, any force in the galaxy, would now think twice before challenging Earth. Humanity had carved out their place among the stars, not through peace, but through the undeniable proof that they could, and would, fight when provoked. And now, the galaxy knew, Earth was not to be underestimated.